All right. It's the age-old Denver Nuggets question. Should the Denver Nuggets trade Michael Porter Jr. even after a career year of 81 games played,
Yeah.
best series of his life in the first round, 22 points per game on like a 69 true shooting, making everything in the world. And he has a not-so-good series versus the Minnesota Timberwolves, 10.5 points a game, sub 35% from the field and from three. So, Ryan Blackburn, when you consider Michael Porter Jr. in totality, and you consider the Denver Nuggets in totality, do you think that in order for them to get where they want to go, that they need to trade Michael Porter Jr. and get some better pieces to fit the overall structure of the team?
Man, I've gone back and forth on this a couple times, and I think where I come down on it is no, they do not have to trade him in order to win another championship. They've already had the theory of the practice, right? Like we've already seen what happens when the team is healthy, when they're hungry, when he's playing well, and when the matchups kind of break right. I think that he is a tremendous offensive talent. He is somebody that is still growing in this league, and he's become less of a defensive liability than where he was. Now, what I will say is that he is still kind of limited in his style and in sort of the player who he is ultimately going to be. I was talking about this on my last podcast that I think that he's still basically the same player that he was when he came into the league, which is he's a tall, scoring forward. He's going to shoot. It's mostly catch and shoot. He's added some pull ups. He's added a little bit of passing. He's added a little bit of driving, but he's still kind of a target on the defensive end at times. And I don't know if that is going to change that much. So he's probably going to end up being the third option. And if he's comfortable being the third option, if he can be the best third option in the NBA, then yeah, sure. I think that Denver can absolutely win a championship with him. The the question is whether he will be, and the question is whether you think it's the best chance for the Nuggets to win a championship, and that's where I don't have as solid of an answer.
The best chance to win another championship. Correct yourself, Ryan Blackburn. I think that I know they can win another one without trading him because
Yeah.
he had a 46 true shooting in the I think he had a 40 in the Minnesota Timberwolves series. He had a 49.5 true shooting in that series, and Jamal Murray in that same series had a 48 true shooting. That's why they lost.
Yeah.
Their second and third best player, they were terrible. They didn't make anything. They were missing everything. So I think some of this with Porter is like, okay, well, if Jamal Murray has a better shooting series and they win game 7, they don't go to game 7 because they win game 1 and now it's over in 6. Like, is this a conversation? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is this a thing? Because now they're playing versus the Mavericks, and they're not defending Porter like the Timberwolves are.
I agree.
So if that's the case, now Porter's at 17, 8, and 2, and now he's shooting another 63, 65% true shooting series and 44% from 3. It's like, oh, Porter, oh my gosh. But that's the playoffs. Like,
wow, he's good again. Like, it's crazy.
Right. I think that's the playoffs. So for me, it's an overreaction. I just think people are just so devastated by the way the series ended and the way the season ended. And, didn't meet my expectation even. And obviously yours. We both picked him to win the championship again, and many fans did as well. I just think the thing with Porter is the Nuggets are needing another 6 starter like they had with Bruce Brown. That was their formula. That's how they got where they needed to get. Because you remember, there were games where the Nuggets didn't have Jamal Murray and Bruce Brown started, and they were lights out. There was a game where they didn't have Michael Porter Jr. and they had Bruce Brown, and they were lights out. There were games where they didn't have Michael Porter Jr. or Jamal Murray, and it was Bruce Brown and Christian Brown, and they were lights out. So that's what the Nuggets fans, I think, are remembering. And I think more so that speaks to me about, well, Calvin Booth has to do the job to get another 6th player on the roster. To me, that's it. And I know some of the money stuff is like, well, who are they going to find? Who are they going to pay? But there's a lot of players that are really good that can come off the bench and play well for the Nuggets. I would rather go that option first. Be like, look, let's give it a shot. Let's see if we can add another 6th player that we know is an upgrade from Reggie Jackson, can be a supplemental starter here at times, that can give good minutes, but be a very good to elite defender at that guard spot. And then we can see if we need to make a move. Because you know what? The Dallas Mavericks, they changed their season by getting P.J. Washington and Daniil Gafford. They changed up their scheme. They figured out a better way to play defense around Kyrie and around Luka, and they had players that committed to the scheme. And again, they obviously didn't play Kawhi Leonard in the first round and all that stuff. I get it, but they just turned the corner as a franchise. and it allowed for Luka to be as healthy as possible. Not fully healthy now, but healthy as possible going into the Western Conference Finals. Now they're up 3-0, potentially sweeping the Minnesota Timberwolves and then have a chance to win the NBA Finals. So I just think stuff like that matters, man. And I think for the Nuggets, you have the best starting five in basketball. Like, do you really want to break that up because of one series and really a quarter and a half that your season ended earlier than expected? So that's where I'm kind of stuck in the middle.
It's completely fair. And like a couple points there. Minnesota, obviously an elite defense. They're one of the best perimeter defenses and interior defenses combination that we've seen in a long time. They've got so much personnel, and so many of those other teams that Denver could have faced in these playoffs probably would have had so many issues guarding Murray and Porter and Jokic at the same time. Minnesota is one of the teams that's uniquely positioned to be able to do that.
Right.
And so you're not going to face them the entire time, although you might face them next year. So it's definitely a factor. The other thing, you got to ask yourselves whether if they were to break up his salary and to kind of break up the starting five in terms like, hey, best starting five in the league, a lot of pressure being put onto that statement if you just have as much money as they have tied up into that. If you break up Porter's salary, and let's say hypothetically, it's DeAndre Hunter and Bogdan Bogdanovic. I've brought up that deal to you before. If you have a average to maybe slightly below average starter, but then an elite sixth man, like, does that help you in a series like this one against the Minnesota Timberwolves, where you get another ball handler, somebody who's capable of creating, who could take some pressure off of Jamal Murray in ways that Porter really couldn't this time around? I think it's a fair question. The question is whether it's the best chance. And I don't know the answer to that. Like, it could be that. It could be Andrew Wiggins and Kevon Looney. You get an actual backup center that we've been talking about as, hey, maybe that makes sense to try to help Denver's rotation a little bit. I don't know what the correct answer is, but I do know that these are valuable conversations to have, and it isn't so cut and dry one way or the other that you can make a definitive statement, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, they're not going to be able to finagle their way like the Celtics did, where they got KP and Drew for nothing.
It's wild.
And Derek White for nothing. They did that in basically back-to-back seasons for the most part. So, it's definitely like they're just going to have to be smart. And again, to me, it just comes back to Calvin. Calvin, you cannot do this thing. I don't believe in the young gun thing. I just don't. I'm not a part of that community of people that's like, oh yeah, just keep drafting. That's just you need proven young players that can do what they need to do. And I think, again, for me, find somebody that you can get as a sixth starter. You can do it on cheap, and then you can find out if you need to make a switch and you need to trade somebody. Look what the Pacers did with Pascal Siakam. I also proposed that as a possibility, and maybe they would have done it. Who knows? But Pascal, turned up being really good for the Pacers this year. A part of the reason why they went to the conference finals, other than Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, Mitchell Robinson, and Julius Randle not being there. But, that's what helped them get over the top. So, we'll see.
It's a nuanced conversation, man. This is really tough. This is what the pain of losing in this manner sort of causes for fans and for analysts, and trying to figure out what the best course of action is going forward. But if Calvin Booth is the steward of Nikola Jokic's prime, he's got to find a way to get it done, no matter what that is. And that could be trading Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah, so we'll find out, y'all. Let us know in the comment section. Let us know if you think Michael Porter Jr. should be traded, who you would like to see him traded for, or should they just run it back and see if they can get another quality asset off the bench. This is Ryan Blackburn and your boy Swipa, Mile High Sports. See y'all on the other side.